All right. I want to thank everybody for joining. It is Memorial Day 2022. My name is Representative David Ortiz here in House District 38, which is Littleton and a sliver of the western parts of Centennial and some unincorporated Jefferson County. Um, you know, I think it's really critical to gather and do things like this just because Memorial Day always hits a certain way. It's a time to really remember and honor those that didn't get to come home. And I have gathered here a special group of brother and sister veterans to me, so I'm going to allow them an opportunity to introduce themselves, and we'll go ahead and get into discussing what Memorial Day means for us. So, John Keene, if you would go ahead and start us off.
Hi there, my name is John Keene. I'm the current Junior Vice Commander for the Department of Colorado VFW, and I'm the past commander of VFW Post 1, where for a brief time, David, I think you were my senior vice?
Correct.
Before you launched your bid to run for the... Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, John Keene. John Hunt, you want to go next?
My name is John Hunt. I'm a retired warrant officer serving in the U.S. Army for 22 plus years. I'm an Apache pilot. I did that in the Army after I served about 10 years as a combat engineer, and I still provide Apache pilot, instructor pilot services to the young men and women aspiring to be attack pilots in our future aviation force down here at Fort Rucker, Alabama, as a civilian down here. So I served with Representative Ortiz and Reggie Oliver there for a while at Wolfpack at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I've got a wife, 4 kids. We're foster parents, and I have a grandson. So glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
That's awesome, John. All right, Reg, you want to go next?
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. Reginald Oliver, active duty Army warrant officer, maintenance test pilot, maintenance evaluator for EH-64 Delta and Echo Apache. As John said, I grew up with him and Dave in the Wolfpack and at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. We've gone way back. We grew up together in candidate school. We went through flight school together. We've deployed together. Be here.
All right. Appreciate that, Reg. Kristen, you want to go ahead?
That could get an opportunity to.
Darn it, I hate when that happens.
Right.
I'm Kristen Luevanos. I am current Senior Vice Commander of VFW Post number 1. I am retired Army active duty and reservist, petroleum sergeant, platoon sergeant, Iraq, 2003, 2004. Also ran a mobile petroleum laboratory when I was active duty. And I currently work at the VA. Got a husband and 3 wonderful kids. I got one here, just drove down from Seattle. So I'm excited to share with him what Memorial Day means to me as well.
Outstanding. Well, I really appreciate y'all making the time. And just so everyone's aware, I had the privilege of flying Kiowas for the Army. I got to serve with John and Reg, stationed at Fort Bragg. When it was all said and done, when I was finally medically retired, I was in for 7 years and some change. And it was one of the best jobs that I've ever had the privilege to have outside of serving the amazing people here in HD 38. But right off the top, I want to ask you guys kind of to frame the conversation as what does Memorial Day mean for each of you? And just to kind of frame it a little bit more, for me, I view it as kind of our sacred responsibility and duty as people that served, as men and women that ourselves have served, because when you go in that could be something that you're asked to do for your country is making the ultimate sacrifice and giving your last measure for the men and women to the left and right of you. I think, there's ideal of doing it for your country and for the ideals wrapped up in the Constitution, but at the end of the day, I think a lot of the motivation also comes from the fact that you become family with the people to the left and right of you. So when people like that pass around you in service, I view it as kind of like a sacred responsibility and a privilege. You carry their memory and their experiences with you. And it's your job, in my opinion, it's my job to bring the best of them and what I learned from them and everything I do every day. So that's kind of the way I view it. I don't know if anybody wants to chime in and talk about what it means to them.
Yeah, I think that I remember we lost one guy when we got back from Iraq, and it was devastating for the unit, and so I tried to honor his memory and those that have fallen before. For me, just remembering them and remembering what they sacrificed, the ultimate sacrifice for our country and for me.
Yeah. Thanks, Kristen. John, either?
Oh yeah, so I could talk for days on the meaning of Memorial Day for me. So I think we all join the military in hopes of serving the greater good, the purpose beyond ourselves, and the selfless sacrifice that we all signed up to serve. But over the course of our careers, we've probably seen, it's countless, from Eric Foster all the way to John Osmolsky to Brent Cole, the Tyler Ramirez, who we're all familiar with, and countless others that paid the ultimate sacrifice in combat, facing the enemy, in sacrifice of the greater good. We're all familiar with how our country was started. And it was started for a purpose of espousing freedom and propagating freedom for not only the United States of America, but for the rest of the world. So, and that doesn't come without sacrifice. We can't just pay that monetarily. We have to pay for it in some other way, for the greater good. And we all know that less than 1%, generally speaking, are the ones who pick up that rucksack, as they say, and carry that load and carry it forward. And regardless of what we're facing, the adversities we're facing, we do it regardless of our families. We do it regardless of the people left we leave behind. And if we all leave with the purpose of not making it back one day, and regardless of what we choose to do, we know we're going to serve our country and make our country proud. So today we're going to honor those folks who've done it far beyond our lifetimes, from 1776, even slightly before that, and beyond. So that's what it really means to me. So.
Amen, John. That was a good answer. Anybody want to follow that?
Yeah, I think that especially with Memorial Day, of course, we know it's a day of remembrance of our fallen brothers and sisters in arms. But it's a modern marvel. It's a celebration that there were people who were willing to answer the call that some chose not to or could not answer. And for those who were willing to give everything for the weak as well as some of the strong, or for the old or the sick or the able-bodied, they were willing to give that sacrifice for everyone. And I think it's an absolutely marvelous day that we can actually celebrate those people. While there are certain calls for solemnity on Memorial Day, I think it's also a time where we should legitimately celebrate and enjoy remembering the people that we have. Some people feel bad about having cookouts. Don't feel bad, because some people feel bad about having an adult beverage. Like, don't feel bad, because those people, if they could be here, our brothers and sisters, if they could be here with us, they would be partying with us, and they would be having a great time. So I think as well as it is a somber and solemn occasion, I think it's also a marvelous.
Oh, you got paused at the very end, but I really like the fact that you brought up the joyous aspect of it, because and then we'll get to Keen. But one of the memories that I take with me and that I miss the most is the fun that happens with your brothers and sisters that you serve, whether it's when you're in the middle of flying idiot circles on hold, or trying to play smoke bocce ball with the cave in Afghanistan, or whether you're doing a division change of command, and the majority of the diversity happens to be in one portion of the formation, and someone jokes around, oh, if a Hellfire hit right here, there would go the freaking diversity quota of the entire battalion right there. I don't know, just in my mind, we will always be cutting up and joking around and picking on each other and having a good time. So I really appreciate that you brought that up, because I think that's also something to call to mind, is you better believe if they were here, they would want us, and they would be joining us in celebrating and having a good time. So I appreciate you bringing that up, Reg. John, Keen.
Well, I think, you know how Post 1 celebrates out at the Post 1 plot in Fairmount. And obviously we're remembering veterans who made it home, but continued to serve. And we take the extra step of saying all their names, and we go through that ceremony, and have found ways to remember some important members who aren't necessarily buried there, but we still want to remember them through either their name on the bench or the new monument. And that actually kind of brings up the point you were bringing before the call started. One of those members that we remember every year is Joe Saccato, who was a member of the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, which you alluded to earlier as being the most highly decorated unit of its size and duration in the history of the military. And he's buried not far from our plot with quite a few other Japanese American descendants who were known as the Nisei, and who fought as being second generation Japanese Americans. I think had kind of a chip on his shoulder and wanted to prove how much they loved their country, and it was reflected in the amount of awards that they received during World War II.
I'm really glad you brought that up, John Keane, because I think this might take us into the next part of the conversation. What do you think it is about this nation that would motivate and inspire service among individuals, that while we're interring family members of theirs during World War II in internment camps, just because of the fear around, oh, well, Japanese Americans are not gonna, they're not really about this country, that, you know, this is what we have to do to make sure they're not spying or they're not doing this or that. The bottom line is, what do you think it is that motivates individuals that might serve a country that they love, even if it doesn't necessarily love them the way they deserve? Because I'll speak for myself. Like I'll just dive right in and start answering that question. I know for me, I still have extended family members that are in Mexico, and that don't get to be here. And I know the life that this place has afforded me, the opportunities. Not that we have our issues and we're not perfect, but I guarantee you, I have family members still that would love to have the opportunity to be where I'm at and have lived the life that I live, and have the opportunities that I've had. And I really think at the heart of it, it's the promise that this country provides. It's the promise of the opportunities, and even the promise of changing for the good. I mean, you see an issue, in how many countries do you have the freedom to openly speak truth to power and not end up in jail and not, end up killed even? I mean, if we're going to talk about other countries like Russia or China, where you just disappear. So I really think it's the promise that this country offers. And it's about those ideals enshrined and embodied in the Constitution, in this crazy experiment that we call, the constitutional democratic republic. But I think that's a part of the secret sauce. I don't know if anybody else wants to posit an answer or has an idea. John Hunt?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, you're hitting the nail right on the head. As you were talking, all I could think about was when, Alexander Hamilton was drafting the proposal or the case to ratify the Constitution through the Federalist Papers. He and Patrick Henry were constantly bickering back and forth. As we know, Hamilton was a Federalist who looked for the greater good of the nation, as opposed to Patrick Henry, who was, even though he wanted more liberty, just as much as Alexander Hamilton did. Alexander Hamilton was focused on the macro level, as opposed to Patrick Henry at the micro level, and he was more of an isolationist. And he was more opposed to things like, hey, I don't want a bunch of immigration. We're trying to build this country. But as we all know, I'm Native American, and my wife is the child and granddaughter of immigrants from Assyria. And so my children, if it weren't for them, they wouldn't be here, So what makes this country great is the melting pot of knowledge, the melting pot of experience, the melting pot of those lived experiences throughout their history, throughout their families, that we can continue to progress forward. But also we have to know that, we can continue pushing forward and expand the greater good for the nation through our service, and remembering those sacrifices that those even the anti-federalists and the federalists back in the early 1770s, 1760s, as they were trying to develop this nation and create what we are today. I mean, imagine, what they were thinking back then. I mean, you got to think Alexander Hamilton was in his early 20s, and he literally wrote probably the most historical document when it came to liberty, prosperity, and the overall and the overall expansion of liberty throughout a nation. But he did it in response to what he'd experienced in England. He came here and seen a hole and exploited that to expand the proper or expand the notion of liberty and prosperity for the greater good, instead of that micro level that Patrick Henry was focused on. So
that's great. Kristen or John Keene, did you want to jump in on any of that?
I'll let Keene jump in. I think John Hunt said it all. That was great.
I would just go back to, again, I think when you talk about the Nisei, they were trying to overcompensate, I think, to show their commitment to the country, and maybe hopefully get their parents and whoever else was back here being mistreated to have a better life as well.
Definitely. Well, I guess I'll just jump in. The next question is, how does it show up for you every day? Like, what do you carry with you from whether they're fallen or not, the men and women that you got to serve with? Because I'll tell you, for me personally, I think my life would have turned out very different if Jose Montenegro wouldn't have been in it. Because not only was he one of the few other Mexican-American pilots that was in my, as a Kiowa pilot, so he was kind of a mentor that way. But I remember when I first got injured, he took time off his precious R&R, which we all know what that means, to gather up his family and come visit me. And he saw that I was in a bad way. He saw mentally I just was not there. And so he tried to make me promise. He's like, look, man, I see that you're having a hard time, but I think you're here for a reason. And I think you have more to give. You have to promise me that you're not going to give up and you're going to keep serving in ways that I know that you'll be able to. I wasn't in a place to make that promise then. I was, new to the injury. I just changed the subject and moved on. Fast forward to August, and we'd been in touch, while the rest of his deployment went on. Things had gotten better for me, and I knew, man, I was like, man, if I don't make this promise, he's going to be one of the first ones to get in my face after the unit gets back. So I remember messaging him like, yeah, man, I'm promising you I'm going to keep serving the ways that I know how. I'm going to keep giving it my all. And then a week before everyone was supposed to come home, that's when him and Talia went down, and they passed away. And so his funeral was going to be in Harlingen, because that's where he came from, and I was in San Antonio at the time at the spinal cord injury unit, the VA there, and close to Fort Sam Houston. And then to see him in that box, and if you know Jose, like, to see someone with so much fight and joy and life and compassion and love, to see that person in a box and to see the way it impacted his family, that was a game changer for me in my recovery and in kind of redoubling the efforts and those promises that I made him. I mean, I really don't think I would have fought as hard to get out there and advocate and lobby for veterans in the ways that I did. And I really don't think I would have ended up in elected office if it wasn't for the impact and power of him being like, you still have something to give. I really think this is why you're here. Because let me tell you, at the very beginning, to go from being a 5-minute mile running, hard charging combat aviator to then not even being able to sit up in bed under my own power, like every day for the first 2 months after my crash, I wished I had died. But that's because I didn't know the opportunity that I had. And so what I carry with me is always remembering the opportunity that I have. And partially that I feel like I have to live for them. I have to earn it because they didn't get to come back. Because if he had the opportunity to come back, that he would still be impacting his friends and his family in the ways that he always has and the way that he always did. So there was that added feeling of responsibility that I had to do the same, that I had to make up for that loss. So that's how it shows up for me. I think it still shows up for me in elected office, in that there's only two of us in the House that are Democrats that served. Sullivan, who's now running for Senate, was Vietnam era. I'm only the only OEF OIF on the Democrat side. We have Geithner, Lynch, Holtorf, and Carver, respectively, on the other side of the aisle. But I think it's important to bring that voice and to have it show up, whether it's for service members and veterans and their family members, especially given, what John brought up, that there's less than 1% that serve. So I feel like I've been rambling for a while. We'll go back to the original point, though, is like, how do you carry their memories with you? How does it show up for you? How do you live it out?
I know for me that I appreciate a lot of what they went and did before me. And so then when I came back from Iraq and I'm okay, it was my duty to serve my fellow veterans and to give what they couldn't give, that I know that they would be doing if they were here, right? And so it took me a super long time to be able to come around to that. And our friend, some of us's friend, Dana Niemela, brought me Reynolds. Sorry, I forget that she's married now. To bring me to the VFW, and I had already started kind of volunteering for Homes for Our Troops, and met some of the guys that are now some of my best friends that had got blown up, and that we built houses for them, and they're ADA compliant and accessible for them to be able to do everything. And just doing that volunteer work made me feel so great inside. And so little by little by little, I do more and more and more. And I'm retired from Delta Airlines. I'm retired from the Army. I'm working at the VA now because that's just one more thing I can do to serve our veterans, because nobody can take care of a veteran better than us veterans that have been there, seen that, got the t-shirt.
Literally have the t-shirt.
Got it. I wore it yesterday.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So, I mean, so just going back, I mean, I've, like I said, countless heroes that have served with me or before me that I can just spout off from days on end. But one that's really very personal to me is Sergeant John Osmolsky. He was one of my team leaders in just name an OIF. It's generally around the surge in Iraq in 2007. Well, he and I, I grew up kind of ignorant in a lot of the political realm, and he kind of enlightened me in several different aspects to what it meant to be free, and what liberty really meant. And growing up as a minority in the southeastern portion of North Carolina, I was just fed hey, you have to think this way. And and John just taught me that you don't really have to think that way. Just educate yourself and make your own decision. He didn't sway me either way, but regardless, what really stuck with me is that John was particularly honed on becoming a pilot one day and expanding his career. And he grew up a little bit more, I hate the word privilege, but he grew up a little bit more affluent than I did. And he emboldened me with the confidence that I needed to kind of push myself over the edge to become a pilot. Well, I got all my stuff in, and he had some other things going on. Well, I came to Warrant Officer Flight School, and I left my platoon back in Iraq at the time, and they were going to follow me back home in about 2 months, and John was going to follow me to flight school shortly after that. Well, during that time span, while I was about my fourth weekend to candidate school, John got killed. And to say I was devastated would be an understatement. And John was, he was very passionate about politics. And so he encouraged me to get more involved. And so therefore I became more involved in politics. And, I'm sure that you can talk to Reggie or Representative Ortiz, and they will tell you that, I'm pretty passionate about my points of view on politics. And in fact, John wanted to be a politician one day in his respective political party. And when John died, I swore to him that I would, regardless of what I end up doing, I would do one or the other: become a pilot or become a politician. Well, I've become part of a hybrid. I've definitely became a pilot, but I'm definitely dipping my toes into the world of politics over the years, and ended up getting my undergrad was in aeronautics, but I switched my master's degree to political science, and trying to learn the ins and outs of that, and then hopefully one day following Representative Ortiz's steps down here in South Alabama. So I'm carrying that torch as well for John. Regardless of how many, of our comrades that I've served with, John was personal to me. He was a soldier that I was in charge of, and I was devastated. And I felt like I let him and my platoon and his family down after I left to come to flight school. I felt like it was kind of selfish, but I know John didn't think that way. I knew John knew I was moving forward to serve the greater good. And so that's what it means to me to carry that torch for him. And the rest of those veterans who aspire to do similar things that we all want to do. So
awesome. Keen, how does it show up for you?
I basically followed Kristen's path to getting involved with the VFW.
So it's your service in the VFW is how it shows up, how you carry others with you. So the question, Reg, since you just were able to hop back on, is how, either from somebody that's no longer here, how does your service with others, how does it impact you? How do you carry it with you in what you do today?
Sure. So, and apologies in advance if for some reason the zeros and ones don't travel through cyberspace as quickly as they should. There's a construct on. As far as no matter what I'm doing, and no matter the capacity, that I have to keep pushing forward, and I have to remain focused, because I remember, like, with Talia and Jose and Captain Pace and Lieutenant Fazzari, those are the best of the best. They never gave up. They never quit. There was always work to be done. And, when I do this work day in and day out, we know how dangerous it can be. But I always have to think to myself that if not me, then who? I have to do it for them, because they would be them with me every day. Is when I do my work, I try to inspire others to be better. And if they're having a rough go at it, I try to encourage them to lend, to extend that hand, so I can help pull them up if I can. And if I can't, I always tell them I can find somebody who can. But honestly, that's the only way that I can truly daily carry them with me and remember them, is to exemplify that in the work that I'm doing.
Absolutely. And, since I've got two of my fellow Post One members here, I really have got to say that was kind of a critical first touch for me after getting out of the military, was to be able to find a family like that again. And the thing that was so great about Post One was that they let's say they're not your grandfather's post. They ditched the bar model. It's not about being a bar and making your money that way. It's about service. And I think that's what I was really looking for post-injury, and in looking to enter, back into community after finally regaining my independence, was being able to serve in a new way. So they were able to give me my first touch. And that's kind of how I got into advocating and lobbying and into politics. Even though and I got to put Reg in this too, because I always check in on you two. Like, you guys are always kind of my barometer on whether I'm messed up or not, or you know what I mean? Like, you guys are my check, or just people that I trust. Because y'all are brothers that I can vent to about the work, because this is tough work, and especially right now in a hyper partisan, very divided nation. And look, I hate when people do the both sides thing, but I'm gonna be honest, like, on both sides. Like, sometimes I look at people on my team and some of the stuff that they'll say about service or veterans, I'm just like, like let's use this as a learning opportunity. Let's talk about what that really means, because I think the fact that you do have the less than 1% that does serve, that's kind of furthering the gap between those that either have family members or did serve and those that didn't. And that just, whenever you have that big of a gap, it creates a lack of understanding. But I always love checking in with you guys, and I always imagine this scenario where I look across the aisle, even though we would never serve in the same chamber, but the fact that you all might decide to serve in that way and to get involved in politics and government, even though we might disagree on policy issues, I know where y'all's heart is at. And I think one of you two definitely said that to me. Like, I might not agree with you politically, but I know where your heart is at. And I know that you're going to do good things either way. And the same thing goes for my brother and sister here at Post One. I mean, I see the work that you guys do constantly in the community, whether that's supporting the Veteran Arts Program, whether that's, making sure that we're doing emergent, housing to make sure people aren't losing their housing, through the emergency relief program that we manage through Post One, or the turkey feed, or just a means for us to get together. Like, just seeing you guys today at the cemetery plot, I would say it made me feel like a normal human again. It just being able to sit down with you guys and cut up, which is why I was really looking forward to this event too, because just to be able to see y'all's faces, and then people that are essentially family, because you do, I don't know if it's the intensity or what that happens, but you kind of get forged into family throughout your service. So I really, really got to say that's really cool to hear the way it's shown up for you guys. I really appreciate Reg saying these names out, because I really want to call attention to Talia Ramirez, Jose Montenegro, Captain Scott Pace, First Lieutenant Matt Bizzari. And I got to say, too, as a legislator, to be able to do these memorial highway bills for fallen service members, one for Sergeant First Class Will Lindsay, who was Special Forces Green Beret, to, I believe it was Africa, where he was lost. And so for him and his 3 daughters to be able to honor him and remember him that way. And then CW3 Scott Oswell, who's probably the first and last Kiowa pilot that I will have the somber privilege of doing that for, and getting to meet his mom and his dad and his sister, and he was lost in OIF. But I don't know. It's interesting to belong to this unique lived experience and this unique family, because at the end of the day, I think there is that sense of purpose and wanting to do good for the greater good, and it's for those ideals, right? Whether it shows up in ways that we agree with or don't agree with. We take an oath to the Constitution, not a political party, not a specific president, and we're put together, people from all walks of life, whether you come from middle of nowhere BFE Florida, or from the Lumbee tribe in the Carolinas, or end up here in Colorado. It truly is an honor and privilege to be a part of that group, and it'll probably remain, outside of serving the amazing people here in HG 38, one of the greatest things that I've had the privilege of doing, and especially with men and women that don't get to continue to be with us. You know what I mean? Like that is something that I will always carry with me. The jokes that we told, the parties that we showed up together. I mean, you know how it is in the service. You work hard, you play hard, because you don't know if you have tomorrow. I think that's another aspect of the military. And I think we would expect them to do the same thing for us if it was us that ended up that way. So I'm gonna cap it that way. I don't know if there was a specific question or comment you guys wanted to bring in. If not, then I'll let you guys kind of wrap it up with your last statements. Is there any questions, comment, topic that anybody wanted to bring up real quick before we wrap it up? All right. Well, John Keene, you want to say a last statement?
Well, I would just agree. It was good to see you out there today, and hopefully between now and the next legislative session, we can get together and grab a cup of coffee.
Definitely, it's going to get on the books. John Hunt?
No, it's just, just like you said earlier, Dave. It's regardless of what our political views are. We all know where your heart's at. I think you know where my heart's at. If we think back to where did all this political divide begin, I think I'm old enough to remember, the politics of JFK, even though he had died before I was born. But Ronald Reagan, everyone forgets that Ronald Reagan, he was a Democrat up until he was 51 years old. JFK, you know, in today's society, he would be considered probably a pretty right-wing radical, but it's, you know what, but what separated all that? I mean, it was both of those individuals were always, regardless of their political affiliations, looking out for the greater good of the citizens of America. That's all they did, you know, and they were both on polar opposites of the political spectrum, you know, and I think, and I think about those two individuals all the time when I think about all of my military brothers and sisters. You know, there's many times over my 22-year career that we meet people all the time, from lieutenants to captains to battalion commanders who kind of expose who they are politically, but regardless, we would crawl through hell, excuse my language, with a can of gasoline to pull them out, regardless of what we felt like or ended up like, you know. But like I said, I'm happy to be here. I'm here to honor my brothers and sisters, and for, you know, God knows why you're still here today, Representative Ortiz, and like you said, Jose knew exactly why you were here. So and he passed that torch towards you. So and that sequence of events happened for a reason. You know, he came to you for a reason. So and like you said, that was to solidify that torch that you're going to continue to carry. And I'm dang on proud of you on a day-to-day basis as I see you represent the people of Colorado in your district, man.
I appreciate it, John. That hits me right here. Reg, you got any wrap-up words?
Yeah. So first of all, Dave, you know I love you, man. Everyone here allow me to spend some time with you. You know, I just want to make it very, very clear that in today's day and age, the partisanship divide is wrecking our service, and it is wrecking our country. It's not about being red. It's not about being blue. It's about when you put that uniform on, that you are representing everyone, and you are defending everyone. Regardless of what your policy views are, that there are service members out there that are crawling around in the middle of the night going bump for some enemy that you don't see. That's why they're there. And it's such a blessing that we have the ability to express our freedoms in a way that are protected by those who go bump in the night against those who would be willing to take it away from us. And that's all I have. God bless you, and I hope everyone has a wonderful Memorial Day.
Awesome, Reg. I appreciate you saying that. Kristen, you're going to close us out.
Just thank you for having me on here today, and just just let's not forget that it's not about the barbecues and the things like that. It's really for those that paid the ultimate sacrifice and never came home, and we will never forget them.
Amen. I know I'm going to pour a shot, and there's going to be one left empty on the table, but I'm going to go ahead and take one in honor of our fallen brothers and sisters, John Keene, John Hunt, Reggie Oliver, Kristen Luevanos. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here and kind of have a conversation in front of HD 38 and all those that decided to tune in. I hope everybody had a safe and enjoyable Memorial Day with their friends and family. And I hope as we close out the day that everyone's thoughts at one point or another have wandered to those that did raise their right hand, men and women from all political stripes, all walks of life, communities of color, doesn't matter, LGBTQ+, that decided to raise their right hand and serve this nation and swear an oath to the ideals in those Constitution to make sure that we can continue to try and do better as a nation. That's what they did. We that are still here are here to honor that and remember them and to make sure we carry their service forward. So love you guys so much. We will be in touch.
Yeah.
Take care.
To the fallen.
Cheers.
Hey, yes.